I'm Mark Franklin, practice leader of a team of professional career counselors at careercycles.com and founder of One Life Tools. I'm pleased to be your host today on CareerBuzz, Canada's unique podcast conversation that enriches lives, empowers careers, and energizes organizations. What can you learn from outdoor active experience that might inform your career and life choices? That's one of the questions participants answer in the Life Compass Expedition, an innovative program run by Outward Bound Canada. How can deep connection to the outdoors help us determine our direction in life, show us what we're capable of, teach us how to be our best self? Today, we're joined by Outward Bound Canada's Executive Director, Sarah Wiley, with career experience in teaching, educational, leadership, and operations. Sarah is well equipped to lead Outward Bound Canada's operations and strategic direction. Welcome to CareerBuzz, Sarah.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
What do you like about all the work you're doing with Outward Bound Canada these days?
Well, I have to say, what don't I like? It's kind of a dream job. When I think about my work as executive director of Outward Bound Canada, I get to spend time out in the outdoors with people, which is my first love, so I'm passionate about that. But it's the people that I get to work with. It's the participants who I encounter. It's all of our stakeholders. Outward Bound is a national not-for-profit educational charity, and we have programs from coast to coast. And we work with Canadians, youth and adults, right across the country. And there's so many alumni, there's board members, supporters, staff who are so passionate and engaged about working in the outdoors and using the outdoors as that platform for learning about yourself, learning about groups, learning about each other.
Lots of listeners would have heard about Outward Bound, and we're gonna dive into some of the programs in particular. But you, as its leader and executive director, what does an executive director get up to? What's a typical week?
There's never a typical week. So, I in many ways I think of myself as the captain steering the ship. In some ways, Outward Bound has its roots in its nautical roots. So it goes back 75 years, 1941 in the UK and Britain during wartime. So using that nautical metaphor is quite apt. But, Outward Bound in Canada, we've been around for almost 50 years. And really what I do is work with my team, who are then working with all the staff, and also work with the board to set the direction for Outward Bound. How can we be relevant? How can our programs be, the best they can be? How can we hire the best people? And, how do we want the next 50 years to be to create the greatest impact for more Canadians? We're currently working with about 5,000 Canadians a year and would love to be able to impact more. And part of that is raising funds and providing greater access so we can do that.
Metaphorically, as captain of the ship, what would you say are the key skills or strengths that you draw on regularly to be a successful leader?
Well, you have to have vision. You have to have a sense of the opportunities and the potential, and really believe in the organization that you are leading and its potential, and then have the ability to communicate that to others so that they get on board and they say, hey, that sounds like an amazing vision. I want to be part of that. And then have that ability to then gather that team and bring people under the tent, so to speak. Someone once said to me, Sarah, you're really great at bringing lots of people under the tent. So being able to be welcoming, bring people under the tent, and then allow them to be part of that journey. Welcome them to be part of that journey with you, because you can't do it on your own. You need that wonderful team, and I'm lucky in that I have a great team and a great team of board members as well.
How big is the team? How big is the full staff at Outward Bound Canada?
We're not that big. We're, our full-time employed staff are about 30 across the country. Our national office is about 15 people. And then I have about a 14-member board who I work really closely with. So, when you think about the scope of Canada and our geography and the fact that we're running programs in BC, Alberta, Ontario, East Coast, Northern Canada, just did an expedition up in the Nahanni. The fact that we have only this team of 30 people across the country it's quite phenomenal to think what we're doing coast
Does that
to coast.
include the leaders of the trips, or are they more contractors
yeah.
that you hire for the trips themselves?
Yeah, so at our peak, which would be in the summer, we could be up to about 150 because we have some staff who will come and work 1 or 2 courses a year. They may be educators, social workers, doctors, all sorts of background, and they come in and work a few courses. And we have some staff who will work year round.
So we'll find out about how to become one of those leaders. I used to do a very similar job, I told you before. Sarah, let's step back a bit and figure out how far back does your desire, your interest to help people and help people learn?
That's a great question. I'd say it goes all the way back to my youth. I was really lucky in that I had a father that took me out into nature a lot, so I really had that appreciation early on and felt really comfortable in the outdoors. But I had never thought I would end up in education and in this field. My plan, I went off to university to pursue, I did a degree in political science, thinking about law. I was very interested in international affairs and what was going on in the world. But I kept thinking, the fit is not right. Something's not right here. I love what I'm learning, but I can't imagine myself as a lawyer. And it took a trip overseas, mountain biking in Nepal, for me to have the space to reflect upon what it is that I love. And I realized it's being with people. It's working with people. It's helping people achieve their potential. I had done a lot of jobs in the summer as a coach, working at camps. And that's what I knew was my strength and what I got really excited about. And so I started to look into education and found this wonderful program at Queen's University called the Outdoor and Experiential Ed program. And I found myself there in 1989.
So I love those stories when people take off, they do something like mountain biking in Nepal. And you said the time and space to reflect. And I that's sort of indicative of what happens on an Outward Bound program. Do you remember, was there a moment there when you were mountain biking through the Himalaya and you said to yourself, wait a second, I'm not sure about law. Let me rejig the plans here. Was there a moment that you can zero in on?
I think the moment was beforehand, and that's why I knew I needed that space, because I saw myself going down this path and looking around at the people who were with me thinking, this is not for me. Something doesn't feel right. So I need to go figure out what it is, and I need to get away from the day-to-day and step out of my comfort zone and go somewhere where, I don't know anyone and it's very different, and it will jolt me in many ways to thinking differently. And being in Nepal and on my bike in Thailand, and it did allow me to kind of refine that appreciation for the outdoors and the wilderness and those beautiful spaces and why I loved it so much.
So the decision kind of not to take that path was there. It was the trip that opened up the space for new ideas and new thinking. Yeah, really interesting. So what happened? You did that outdoor ed program. What happened when you graduated?
Well, I met my husband, and that was great. And, I learned, I was reintroduced to Outward Bound. One of my colleagues was working there. I had heard about Outward Bound as a kid. And I thought, wow, that sounds like a wonderful place to work. And so in 1992, I started to instruct. But at the same time, I was teaching up in northern Baffin Island. So my husband and I moved up there. We were teaching in the far north, working as Outward Bound instructors in the summer north of Thunder Bay. It was very remote, leading long wilderness expeditions. And it was a wonderful life. We were spending, our summers were in the outdoors and tents and sleeping bags. And then we had the chance to work year-round at Outward Bound as getting winter work. So we left great teaching jobs in northern Canada to give all that up and live in a little cabin with no running water and an outhouse and, heating by wood fire. And we just embraced it fully. It was exactly what we wanted to do.
So your connection with Outward Bound actually starts way back, close to when you graduated. You were doing a few different things at the same time. And I know you did some work in education, like you left Outward Bound for a while. What was that kind of career in parallel or beside Outward Bound in the teaching field?
I was supply teaching, and then I was working in the classroom as well. So I was working in a more traditional, formal classroom setting. Once again, I love teaching. I love being with young people. We were in northern Baffin, which was in itself an amazing experience. We still have friends from there and have been back there as well. But I think for me, just the limits of the classroom space, not having that flexibility and the richness that comes from teaching in different spaces, alternative environments, which I really enjoy and I think has such a great benefit for so many people.
So I know there was a few other turning points that brought you back into Outward Bound. What are the key turning points in the story?
One of the key turning points, and this might have been there was a key turning point for me even before I got into that outdoor education program, where which really, if I hadn't followed my instinct and my gut here, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. But that was very early on when I was off in Nepal and I applied to do this program. I actually didn't get into the program. There was only 25 people who got in, and so I followed up. Something I would always say to anyone out there: if you want to know why something didn't happen, ask them. Phone up, ask them, because if at least you're going to find out what you can do next time if you're really passionate about something. So I followed up, and the reason why was actually just a technicality, which actually was a mistake on my undergrad university's part. And so when I pointed that out to them, they said, well, it's too late anyhow. We've already chosen our class of 25. And I thought about that for a while, went for a run and thought, that doesn't really seem right. I think, I should be in this program. So I wrote a long letter. And the next thing I knew, they had accepted me into the program. And so I tell that story a lot because if you know you want to do something and something feels right for you, pursue it. Ask those questions, follow up. Don't take no for an answer. Keep going for it because, great things happen. And for me, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be doing this job if I hadn't done that. Yeah,
thanks for sharing that story. It's so important, the follow-up thing. And, maybe it's a Canadian thing because we're also polite and we don't want to be pushy and we don't want to be seen to be overstepping the bounds of what's normal. But at the same time, following up is really helpful, even if just to ask what happened or can I get some feedback. Mm-hmm. Commonly we encourage people in our career coaching business to follow up after an interview. And you don't always get really the straight goods on it, but it is often useful. And then sometimes amazing things can happen, as in your story.
Exactly.
So thanks for sharing that. I hope that encourages listeners to do those follow-ups, even when it's a little bit out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice story, thanks. So that brings us, through a number of things here. I know you then had a few roles in Outward Bound. How did it happen that you actually got the leadership role?
Well, I was working in the field as an instructor for a number of years, and as happens, as you get more experience, you get more responsibility, and I moved into more and more management roles. And then into a national role. Outward Bound used to be 2 schools in Canada, and we merged in 2001. And so at that point, my job became national, which was a great opportunity for me. And at the same time, I had gone back to school to do a master's in education and then started an MBA program. So my focus was really shifting from direct programming into more of that leadership piece and looking at organizational development and strategy and some of those pieces. So that was definitely the transition for me. I did leave Outward Bound in 2004. We had a leadership shift in the organization, and it was a good time for me to move on. And moved on, and then in 2009 came back, and Outward Bound was in need of a new leader, and I was in the right place at the right time.
So interesting. When you left in 2004 or 5, did you think that was it? Like that was it, and I'm moving on, and my career and life is moving in different directions?
Yeah, I did. I think I had topped out at Outward Bound. I was definitely feeling like I was spinning my wheels, and I needed a new challenge. I needed a new perspective. I went into more formal education roles, so I moved out west, and I was working in administrative and leadership positions in more formal school settings. But I did feel like a bit of a fish out of water there. I was, really kind of missing the community that we develop at Outward Bound, and just that environment. But I didn't think I'd come back. And I moved back for family reasons in 2009. And it just happened that it was great timing for Outward Bound. They were in a leadership transition, and everything fell together. And it was also about the connections. I had stayed in touch with a number of some of the key stakeholders. And so they really sought me out at that time to see if I'd be interested.
So there's a lesson learned there about staying in touch.
Oh, for sure.
And was it obvious to you that you would come back when the new opportunity came? Was it like, oh, this is great, I'm going to do it? Do you remember the emotions and then the decision-making process?
Well, it was actually more a slow progression. That the organization actually hired me on as a consultant initially to help them in their redirection. And it was a real pivotal time for Outward Bound in its history, and really having to reinvent what we do and be more relevant. And so I came in to help provide some guidance. And it was through that I found myself getting drawn back in to Outward Bound and remembering what I loved about it, which is really the people. I love working with the people. I love the challenge. I love the fact that every day is different and that I don't know what I'm doing from day to day. But just those connections in that community within the staff community and the alumni community was so strong.
You just started 3 sentences with the words, I love. When I hear that, I know somebody is really tuned into their career.
Yeah.
That's great. My guest today is Sarah Wiley. She's the Executive Director of Outward Bound Canada. I'm your host, Mark Franklin, here on CareerBuzz on CIUT 89.5 in Toronto and worldwide at CIUT.FM. Sarah, I want to shift the conversation to some of the programs. And in particular, there's this one interesting program that I learned about, Life Compass Expedition. And I guess any Outward Bound trip could be a reflection opportunity, like your story, mountain biking in Nepal, and I have some of my own stories, and I've heard others. But this one in particular is focused on really helping people determine life direction, give new perspective, show participants what they're capable of. And I love this little phrase, how to be your best self. Mm. So can you just set up this program for us briefly? And then I know we have a participant or a parent of a participant on the line, and we're going to get to her in a moment. But just in a nutshell, what is that Life Compass Expedition?
The Life Compass program is for those who are in the age range of 19 to about 30. And who are trying to figure out where to go in life, what's the next step, whether they go on to further education, whether they travel, go into the workforce, just what is it that is the next step, and aren't really sure of how to make that transition. And what we do is we go into the wilderness and do what we do best, which is help people through challenge in unfamiliar environments, with lots of facilitation, help people to discover what their strengths are, where their potential is, and as you said, to rediscover that their best self. And it is something we hear all the time. I have in my mind a testimonial that a young girl sent to us this summer, saying, "I discovered the best, the best version of myself," and so that when young people come back from that, they have that confidence and that belief again that, what, I can be that person. This is what I love. This is what I believe in. This is what's important to me, and help them to then take that next step.
It's, well, first of all, there's a great little video that listeners should check out. If you go to Outward Bound Canada and you find the trip, the Life Compass Expedition, there's a nice little video. The photography was gorgeous on that video. Now, we have Jenny Malash on the line. She's actually the parent of one of the participants. Just to tune in and hear how that went. Jenny, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Thanks for joining us here on CareerBuzz. Can you just say a little bit about your experience? I guess it was your son who went on the trip, and how that was for him?
Yes. It was a grad present from my dad and myself to him after he finished university. He had a rough teenage years, and he just feels like what Sarah said, he needed to believe in himself again and to find his true self. And so it's more like I was thinking of a vision quest or an outdoor challenge. So after he went on the trip, he was able to stay out west for a little bit. And when he came home, he was a different person. He believed in himself again. When he phoned me after the trip was over, he had said to me, "Mom, I have found my travel partner." I'm like, "Oh, who?" He said, "Myself. I have found myself again." So he was feeling lost. There was a lot of things and struggles he'd went through when he was in high school and university. And all of those questions that, if you look at the description of the course, and it says, do you want to do this? And it listed off a whole bunch. As a parent, I answered yes to all of them for my son, and how I wanted that for him. I wanted him to feel that again. And
wow, that's great. That was a goosebump moment, Jenny. Just like the travel partner is himself.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. What was it? I mean, these experiential things can be so powerful, and it's tuning into the cycles of nature, and it's the other participants and the leadership. And what did first of all, what is your son's name?
Justin.
Justin. What did he say? What were some of the key parts of the trip that really made it for him?
He actually couldn't nail it down to just one particular thing. He said it was the whole experience with the amazing counselors that were with him, the leaders and the counselors. He really connected with a few of them. They shared their personal struggles, so it made them feel like they weren't alone. Then it was working together, challenging themselves and living in the elements, and he was from Ontario, so he had never been there. And then meeting connections with all other people and sharing stories with them. And then the solo, he said, was I think the cement to all of the pieces put together.
Yes, Sarah, when you hear Jenny talk about that, how do you feel?
Well, I'm nodding my head. So everything that you're talking about are the things that we hear time and again that make that difference, usually starting with the instructors and having those really, coaches. They're more like coaches to help facilitate the experience. And then the group is so key, the coming together, people who are quite different, who otherwise may never meet each other, but come together to create community and share and struggle and get through challenges. And then solo is such an impactful part, and solo is anything from 24 hours to 48 hours, where you spend time on your own and you're being self-reliant and building your shelter and, spending time really being able to reflect on what's happened and where do you want to go next in your life. So it's really important to have that key piece.
And they do a lot of journaling, and I think when you journal, when you're out there and you're on your own, you can actually really reflect on everything. Because when he came back, he was a different person, and I don't think this would have ever happened if he hadn't gone on the Outward Bound trip. He applied for an internship at the UN in New York, and he got accepted, so he went down there for 4 months. He now works at the Ontario government, and he's looking at applying for his master's in international relationships or affairs, depending on the program. And that's all because of this course.
That's so great, Jenny. And when you say he was a different person, and he came back, and in those first days or weeks afterwards, what were a couple of clues that showed you he was a different person?
He seemed happier. He seemed to be comfortable in his own skin again. A lot of things happened in high school and university that made him not believe in himself, or that he wasn't worth a lot. He didn't expect anything positive to start happening in his life again. And all of a sudden I could see that the old routines weren't good enough for him anymore. He wanted new challenges, whether it was going for a hike or meeting someone new. And he still is in contact with about 3 of the people that went on this trip 2 years later. So,
that's great. Thanks so much, Jenny Meloche, for joining us here on CareerBuzz and telling us about Justin's experience.
I would like to thank Outward Bound and Sarah for all their hard work, because honestly, it's life-changing for these youth, and because it's such a specific age range, it really helps with that program.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you.
Right on.
All right.
Great. That's it's so interesting to hear these stories and reflecting on one's life and experience when you know, not just when you're talking to a helpful coach or counselor, and career professionals exist all over the country. Our team does that. But I personally have also observed, because I've led these kinds of trips myself, how there is something about tuning into the cycles of nature, especially if you take somebody from Ontario and take them out to the Rockies, and that's just a mind-blowing experience. What do you think the outdoor part is, Sarah, that special additional piece beyond maybe sitting in a room and talking to a counselor or coach?
You know, I think it's that that you realize it gives you that perspective on the world. You realize really how small we are, and you know, in the face of this beauty and grandeur that you see around you, and also, then I know for me, it helps me to get things into perspective and to really realize my place in that, and also then the continuity when you look at natural cycles and things that just have endured for so long and under so much challenge and duress, and they continue on. And it also allows you to feel some strength from that, and realize that we're connected to that. We're all a piece of nature, and we're all connected to that natural cycle. And so I know for me, for a personal level, it just always is refreshing. It's invigorating. And you need to, I know I need to disconnect. The time that I truly am able to disconnect is when I'm in the outdoors. And every year I do a canoe trip with my family, and my cell phone, stays in the car. And it's only in that time, 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, that I can truly disconnect. And just once again get back to those rhythms, those natural rhythms, and reconnect with myself. And so I think that is really the really powerful opportunity.
It is, and I've seen it myself, and I canoe trip, and I've taken trips in Cuba and Nicaragua, and there's such great opportunities. They also cost money, and just to look at that angle for a moment. And, we'd like to make these kinds of opportunities available to so many people, and yet it does cost money. And I know there's a price tag attached to Life Compass Expedition, has other trips. And then there's also fund and fundraising. Can you just talk a little bit about that for listeners?
Sure. A lot of people actually don't realize that Outward Bound is a charity. And it's been a big focus on ours in the last 5 or 6 years to increase access. So currently, about 60% of all our participants right across the country receive some kind of support to attend Outward Bound. And our goal in the next, 5 to 10 years is to increase that. So for every program, there's funding available. There are bursaries and scholarships. So if you go onto our website, you can find out about those opportunities. And we also have tips and tools and can help you to do your own fundraising. So we've had young people who have set up their own web pages and are raising funds to help to get themselves on an Outward Bound program. We also have funding for specific program or populations. So, and one of them that I would just like to mention is the Veterans Program. So we work with military veterans who are transitioning back to civilian life. And once again, that transition, figuring out what they're going to do next is so important. And those programs are fully funded. And we run those programs right across the country. And so some of our programs, it's full funding, and others, we have scholarships and bursary funding available.
It's a beautiful website. I love the pictures on it. I mean, it's just so visual, as websites ought to be, but not all of them are. And I guess, people may also think that these trips are only for youth or people like the Life Compass age group, but it looks like there's trips right across the lifespan.
Yep. From the age of 12 is probably our youngest, right up to, I'm not going to put an age limit on it, but I've had, people in their 70s out with me on expeditions. So, I believe Outward Bound is for all Canadians, and everyone needs to reconnect with themselves. Everyone needs to, find that best version of themselves. And everyone goes through transition. And so whether you're an adult transitioning career, relationship transition, or you're a young person transitioning into being an adult, there is a program there for you.
Right on. Just to circle back to wrap up this part of the show today, we heard a little bit, Sarah, about your personal experience and the twists and turns in your career. What can you share with listeners about what you've learned personally about making good choices, career and life choices? Insights or ideas that you can share with listeners?
Well, the first thing I'd say is don't rush. I think for me, taking that time to travel after I finished my first degree, and I think young people these days realize they're going to need to do lots of different things. You don't just go into one career. So take the time, see the world, do something different, shake it up a little bit. I know my husband went and worked for a roofing company, and that was one of the best things he ever did. So take some time and figure out what really excites you, and also what you're good at and where you can add value. And then once you've been able to kind of put those pieces together, realize that the journey is going to have lots of twists and turns and that you may have setbacks. But if you just keep pursuing that and taking the opportunities, and when a door closes, another one opens, go through that open door. And it goes back to that follow-up. Just keep asking those questions and keep looking for those opportunities ahead of you. It's not simple. It's not a straight path. But if you lead with your heart and what is exciting for you and that you love and that you can be good at, I think those, for me, were the key things.
Fabulous. Sarah Wiley, thanks so much for joining us here on CareerBuzz.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to the CareerBuzz podcast. Find us on iTunes or visit careercycles.com/radio to subscribe and download past episodes. Get inspiring career stories full of twists and turns, actionable ideas from career experts, and new ideas to empower your own career and life.